Yo, what up? I'll keep this intro brief, as it's pretty clear by the title of what I'm doing here. Making lazy content. I mean, making a guide discussing all the free-to-play generals for the community. Yeah. So I'll be discussing each gen as best I can, describing what they can do, any niche roles they can fulfill, stuff like that. Early in the video, we might breeze through these generals because I don't want to pull some super convoluted niches they can do out of my ass, and you'd rather not hear them anyways. What makes me so qualified to discuss all these generals? I don't know. I'm doing this for fun. You decide if you want to listen or not. There might be a lot of hot takes later on, so feel free to tell me how wrong I am. The algorithm will enjoy the engagement. Last thing before we get into this, I will be disregarding any and all costs of the generals except for the trainable generals. I enjoy discussing how good a general is by purely looking at what they offer. Grinding enough medals to get a functioning general takes a couple of months, but grinding for a trainable general takes like 4 to 5 for gold and far longer for silver or bronze. And it's very important you pick a general that will be not only very effective, but also worth their price. When I'm done with each general, I'll rank the top 5 for infantry, tank, navy, RD, and air. So let's get started. Base Tito, cheap eco, that's basically it. Upgrade the eco. Trainable Tito is an omega expensive eco general. They're nice, obviously eco generals are very nice to have, but they're not worth the scepters and the swords that you'll have to spend to get him. If you want, you could run technology expert and some defensive skill, or spitballing RD, leader, and accuracy. I wouldn't run raider and infantry leader personally. First skill obviously doesn't work if you're nearby any enemy unit, so 2 range sort of works with that. It's your choice, obviously. That's just one of my more hot takes. We're already starting out strong, are we? Terauchi, in terms of bronze general, he's probably the best non-trainable RD general. Not worth it in normal gameplay though, of course. Kuribayashi, god-awful infantry. Wainwright is better and free. They're both slow, but Wainwright is free, so there isn't much complaining you should be having. Krayer is a slow general that has crowd tactics, which really want to have fast generals with crowd tactics to use crowd more effectively. It's just not worth it at all. Begremian is a super defensive general, preferably used on tank, despite the better infantry stars. Don't buy regardless though, but he's definitely a nice defensive general. Messe, he used to be the first purchase anyone would make back in the days. But now you have 3 bronze generals, and you can upgrade one of them to fulfill the achievements to get Pavlov. So Messe really fell out of favor. Not much use for him nowadays. Battleglio, you're not gonna buy Terauchi, so why would you buy this guy as well? The damage increasing perks, Raider, Armored Assault, Accuracy, they are better standalone versus standalone leader perks because the percentage based damage perks are significantly better, offer way more damage overall. Tested it on a base Govorov. Accuracy was the better option. Auchinleck base, just use Schmidhuber. Auchinleck trainable is a nice supportive general, despite what the skill suggests. Demoralized in his case means unit under chaos, not also low morale. Worth it though? As a first or second purchase, I would personally say no. Far too expensive for some nice support, but he's nice support, of course. You can be generic and run AA and Blitzkrieg, or you can run something more gimpy like FS and Fortif. Kuznetsov base, a solid early game naval general back in the day. He lost some relevance mid game, but with his new trainable version, buying him for early game and then eventually upgrading him to late game helps bump him up a bit in viability. Not a bad general at all. Of course, you have Helfrich, and Helfrich is a free naval general who can do the job of an early game navy just fine. So it's debatable if you want to buy him and like have him just sit in the back of your roster waiting for his time to shine, but he can still shine. Like, these are not bad skills, and the stats are decent, but he's not bad. If you need like an emergency Navy general, he'll do that job just fine. Now, trainable Kuz is probably the second best naval general in the game. I say second best because his joint offensive perk doesn't really benefit him unless you're using Excellency Medal. And I'm looking at this video purely from a free-to-play perspective, so I'm disregarding any and all pay-to-win elements. So this literally does nothing for him. It's more benefiting of Yamaguchi, Donitz, any other naval general you can think of. But this is still a very powerful general thanks to naval assault. Second best, like I said. I would say inspiration and inferior victory, or maybe early warning if you want a bit more of defense on him. Oblemi suffers the same thing as his Italian counterpart. The only difference is the Italian has shelter, which is an inherently better skill late game than desert fighting. But then again, who is going to use him in the late game? Who's going to use most of these bronze generals in late game? Not anyone running a normal team, that is. Heinrici. Heinrici is a bronze infantry general. Better than Wainwright, but he's free, so like it's purely based off skills. Heinrici is better. Heinrici though has a unique, well, I wouldn't say it's unique, it's sort of unique. He is one of the generals that does a medic Hawkeye combo really nicely. Infantry leader works with the Hawkeye perk. Rumor works with medic, as medic's not going to do any damage, and he's really fast. And also resistance to air, also very nice. There are a few other Hawkeye medic combo generals that we'll discuss later, but he's probably the first one. For a while I used to think he was the better option in bronze, but I think Judy's better. Bach is a better Schmidhuber, but again, free. Trainable Bach is our first trainable general, and this guy aged poorly, in my opinion. What he offers is nice, but the crit boost isn't as massive in practice as it sounds on paper. In my experience, I find myself struggling to stay on enemy territory more than staying on allied territory, making the skill more or less redundant. When it does trigger, the increase isn't crazy. I'd say like 50-ish extra damage, you know, like net 17% gain. An increase nonetheless, of course, but not an increase that is worth the large price tag that he comes with. Armored Assault, and then Inspiration or Inferior Victory, whichever you prefer. Fletcher is a carrier naval hybrid that is a little bit less expensive than Halsey. But just focusing purely... okay, restart that. Fletcher, the first of the many naval carrier hybrids, and the one that does not do it effectively. As an air general, you want Air Force Leader over carpet bombing any day of the week. If you have to choose between the two, it's always Air Force Leader over carpet bombing. And this guy doesn't have Air Force Leader, so he's not good. And also, his air stars are not amazing either. Nazer, undoubtedly the best bronze infantry general in the game. But he's not Wainwright, so don't buy him. Slim, God of Terrain, God of below average. Tassingy, a more expensive Tito, but a more defensive eco-general, can survive more hits if you get a lucky cover, repairs the city faster, which can help soak up more damage. De Gaulle, want to see me post a picture of an inherently better general? Want to see me do it again? Trainable De Gaulle is a worthwhile one, first or second. He has amazing support with the Rumor and Firepower Blockade combo, can most of the time easily cripple enemies or heavily reduce their damage. He's just very flexible. I've once experimented with the thought of using an air De Gaulle with like Air Force Leader and RD Leader so that he works on a helicopter. It's a funny skill set. I wouldn't recommend it though, obviously. It's more of a meme set. You're probably better off running Leader and then Inspiration or Inferior Victory. Judy is the other medic Hawkeye combo in bronze. I'd say he does it better. Guerrilla warfare allows him to survive longer just because he doesn't take as many hits as Heinrici would. Replacement, even if replacement heals very little, he's still healing, unlike Heinrici. and something just a little bit better infantry star. Not a whole lot, but it's definitely something to take note of. Less speed, but we have brown ribbons to deal with that. Schmudhuber, free tank. For all three of these free guys, only upgrade a skill for the achievement to get Pavlov. That's what these guys are here for. He's decent because he's free. Same thing with Wainwright. He's decent because he's free. Health Freak is the only one that is decent more than just because he's free. Because Navy only really needs Fleet Leader, and he has Sailor and Cover and Depot ship instead. It's like he's not bad. He's not amazing, of course. He's like barely above okay. But he'll get the job done, and if you need a naval general, you can get Horton pretty early on, and you can just use him and Horton and deal with most naval issues until you can get someone better like Yamaguchi, or someone a bit more cost-effective like Halsey, who you can train later on. Alright, and now we're on to Silver Tier, the most bloated section of this list, so let's get right to it. Starting off with Lieb. He used to be everyone's first artillery general in the early game. He was everything we really needed in artillery general. Our rumor was super necessary, and he also had damage that was on par with Konev too. Nowadays he's a bit power crept, but he still holds his niche of a cheap rumor spreading general. He'll be more support oriented, but his damage isn't lackluster. Compared to generals that can have inspiration now, though, he's definitely fallen off, but still, if you need more rumor for artillery outside of the Gaulle, definitely grab Lieb. Accuracy is the skill you'd probably use, of course. Sikorsky is a new eco general with the option of double eco or an aggressive eco using accuracy, like Tito if you run an already Tito set. Not bad at all. Average, like your Chuikov. I'm discussing him for the sake of documentary purposes. Don't buy him no matter what. I guarantee you, whatever you think he can do, another general can do better. Accuracy, I guess. Base Halsey is a very good EF carrier user who is also good on Navy, a classic example of the hybrid done right. Run Air Force leader to make his hybrid work well, or ignore the hybrid capabilities for more naval damage, but I would not recommend that. His trainable version is an even better carrier than the naval hybrid. The opportunities you can run on him are vast, so my preferred set is Air Force leader and early warning. Have Enterprise, slap him on there. An emergency naval general, slap him on a cruiser. He's great, and that air can also be used on land too, so don't forget that. Very flexible. Would I recommend as a first or second pick? No, not because he's bad, not at all, but because his competition is far more fierce with other trainable generals. What he can do is great, but there's other generals that can do the same thing. They just don't have the Enterprise perk. Vatutin, the debate is over. Vatutin as a tank general is really bad. So many newer guys do the job of a silver tanker way better. His fame of being better than Rokoskowski in the beginning is nothing in the modern age. Run Armored Assault. Sun LR, Rommel called he won his crossfire back. Back then he had a little niche, but it's long since shattered since Pavlov and Julius entered the fray. Armored Assault. Remember when Nedonin versus Lieb versus Brauktish versus Zhang ZZ was a thing? Yeah? Well, those are being tallied. We'll get back with you later on that. Overall, not a bad artillery general, but not great either. Inspiration or inferior victory, your choice. What the f***? Accuracy. You want Crossfire RD General? Stay tuned. We've got two that'll really shock you. Anders is one of the 3 new tank generals in the previous update with Julius and Simmons. He's second best IMO. He's average, like your GPA. Panzer leader or fortifications. Leclerc, want to see me post a picture of an inherently better general? Want to see me do it again? Armored Assault. Julius, the best of the tanker trio mentioned earlier, preferably Armored Assault, but fortifications can be used. A good general, really, but Pavlov is free with 1 less speed. I don't have base Skovarov, but he has force fighting, explosives, and barrage, I think. He had like the niches of uses when Frontier was new, but that's about it for this guy. You should probably just run accuracy. Discussed earlier, damage percentage skills beats leader. Now his trainable skill This is the other trainable general worth the early purchase. Now, I know patent exists. Yes, just hear me out first and listen to patent spiel before you write in your comment. You can still do it though, boost the algorithm. Govorov became one of the best RD generals for free to play and even threatened Zhukov for that placement in pay to win. His ability to always counter is amazing. It makes RD invasions a breeze, and he can join a counter if nearby and in range. It's a cherry on top, but the always counter is the real prize winner. His other skill gives him plus 25% damage when attacking enemies 2 tiles or more away. Debatable if this is better or worse than Inspiration or Victory Inferior. Run accuracy, and I implore you to run Crossfire. No matter how much your gut says to run Inspiration or Inferior Victory, I insist run Crossfire. Just really completes this wonderful general. Once you have him, you'll never want to not use him. He's amazing. I personally say get him first and then Degal, but you can totally get Degal first and then Govorov. Nagumo. Back when Mountbatten versus Nagumo debate was a real question people ask, I used to say Mountbatten due to the better speed. When brown ribbons were added though, I switched up to Nagumo camp. Now both are mid. He's not bad, not at all, but there are better naval generals. Run Inspiration, Inferior Victory, or Early Warning. Bittrik, literally a Guderian Light. Run Panzer Leader. Doolittle, a fast and effective helicopter general with FS working well on Apache, or if your Hind has 2 range. Run Carpet Bombing, great air general, but really you just need 5 or 6 stars, Air Force leader, and decent speed to be a good air general, not the highest bar to cross. Ozawa, hey chat, wanna see a base Halsey clone that's better? If you want, you can totally still smack Carpet Bombing and enjoy extra damage when you use him as a land air general, but you have the option to use Inspiration, Early Warning, or Inferior Victory on him to increase his naval damage and survivability. Clark, a fine infantry general, that's about it. You can be funny and use Fleet Leader and upgrade his Navy stars, or use Inspiration or Guerrilla or Inferior Victory. I wouldn't recommend the Fleet Leader, it's just a meme, it's a meme set. Mertskov, the other medic Hawkeye hybrid, he combines Heinrich's Rumor and Judy's superior damage to create the best free-to-play medic focused on double debuff in strategic attack and Rumor. Really, he's awesome in this role. Survives long with Guerrilla, and then helps your allies defeat the enemy faster if the enemy just so happens to be a unit that's just above your general's damage threshold, or if it's a boss general too. Hermann Hoth, he had a lot of potential as a great DPS tanker, and then Blitzkrieg blitzed his ass and took away the Armored Assault spot. Now you need to run Armored Assault to make him viable. Fine pick, but Bittrik exists. An extra star in tank and speed doesn't not surpass the spear strength of Inspiration or Inferior Victory. Bastico. Falkenhorst, this is Hoth done right. He has the highest infantry damage of free to play with the Dominance and Insp/Inferior Victory combo, especially if you add Dominance Medal on him, because Dominance increases damage when the enemy is low morale, and that paired with you being in high morale, he does really impressive damage. Just a little bit of setup, but it's honestly worth it. And if you have Degal, it's pretty easy to spread Rumor, or if you just simply surround the enemy. He's also fast, so that helps with doing that. Timoshenko, remember when AI Timo carried hardcore in Modern War in the beginning of the game? Me too. This is the crowd tactics support general whenever people ask about crowd, because he's fast. That's like the biggest reason, because he's fast. Run Rumor or Fortifications, your choice if you want more support or if you just want him to survive longer. He's not meant to do damage. List is an extremely expensive general that was outclassed by Bastico, decent otherwise. Panther Leader 4/4 slot though. The explosives is definitely a skill that's fallen out of favor. I know there are events that have fortresses that you need to kill, but it's not that useful to have. Like, you wouldn't sacrifice a skill slot on Guderian to get explosives. So why would you sacrifice a pre-made slot for explosives, you know? Base modal this is basically Begremian if he was silver. This guy isn't worth it, don't even consider. But obviously Fortifications or AA. His trainable version is probably the most underwhelming trainable general compared to the others. A better crossfire general than Rommel, but far more expensive. This guy should be the last trainable general if you choose to pick him up, in my opinion. He's not anything special. AA and Insp, Inferior Victory, or Fortifications, your choice. He's not bad. Obviously, he's not bad. Like, none of these trainable generals outside of Tito, in my opinion, are bad. But, like, He just doesn't bring anything too unique, and his price tag is definitely a little bit too much for his lack of uniqueness. Wiedling, the results are in for the Nenonin versus Lieb versus Brauktisch versus Zhangziyi debate. Wiedling won. He has the firepower Nenonin and Brauk give, plus Crossfire, which Zhangziyi gives. And also Crossfire is just really fun to have on an artillery general. Simmons, the loser of the tank trio mentioned earlier, the only difference between him and Anders is a choice of Ace Forces or Tide of Iron. Ace is genuinely garbage, especially on a tank general, as tank generals can gather rank pretty quickly. So Tide is better purely because, you know, you just get a little bit less of a damage deficit when you go under half. Run AA though. Mikawa, a fun support general with his Night Raid boosted by the Blitzkrieg medal. Wolfpack is better damage buffed than Leadership, and you can run Safe Rumor or Inspiration or Inferior Victory, your choice. If you want more support to help with the Wolfpack, or if you just want Inspiration or Inferior Victory for damage, whichever you prefer. Mountbatten is just an average naval general, nothing more, nothing less. Inspiration, Inferior Victory, or Early Warning to benefit off Sailor. Braukich. Back when there was no Wiedling, I was a vouch for Brauk over Nenonin. Mountain fighting was superior to Barrage. Losing one less speed wasn't really an issue with Brown Ribbons. You would run accuracy, by the way. Koenig, Crossfire on a one range unit isn't really the best in my opinion, but he can be used on RPG to make use of it, and of FS. I wouldn't recommend it personally. Obviously, you would run Raider, of course. Smigley, the city repairing aficionado. That's it. Not worth it in the slightest. Run an eco skill on him or crowd to make him an engineer general if you want. I wouldn't recommend it though. Kesselring, back when helicopters didn't exist, explosives was pretty useless. Now that they do exist, he can take cities faster. He can stay on a city, and when he can dodge pretty often on helicopters. The architecture will repair the city, and with AA on it, the city will absorb more damage overall and protect Kesselring more. So that's definitely a fun role you could have him fulfill. I would say Doolittle's better because of the FS, because you just heal. You know, what's not to love about healing? It's not amazing healing, of course, but it's still healing, especially with that metal that can boost it. But yeah, I could see some funny shenanigans with him, with camouflage or carpet. Back when Fortifications was a unique skill, this guy still sucked compared to this pure Rommel, but now that Fortifications is universally usable, this guy's small niche became redundant. Run Armored Assault. Higuchi, honestly, I forget about this guy's existence a lot. He just doesn't stand out. His counter doesn't really make him shine too much, but it does work all the time, even if he is outranged. You could run defensive perk like Cover, but that ruins the whole point of counter. So what are you gonna do, right? Crossfire, Inspiration, Inferior Victory, your choice. Still a fine general, but I would prefer Falcon as a silver infantry. Zhangziyi, the Wiedling before Wiedling, had a resurgence in Frontier and Warzone, but he fell off when more artillery generals began to exist. Run accuracy. Vasilevsky, the worst infantry general in the silver tier. He wants to do damage, but 2 slots are already taken up by defensive and a useless perk, and anti-artillery perk alone is only mediocre. Run Raider. Pang DH is the better Vasilevsky, 1 less star for higher speed, and also you get the added benefit of having camouflage, which is really useful on infantry. You would run Raider of course, or Cover. Mannerheim, back when it was just him and the other 2 infantry generals, he was probably the best one in terms of damage. Now his role has been usurped by many others, but he's still decent, thanks to the force fighting. Run Infantry Leader. Bradley, Brauk, but anti-arty over Inspiration. He has a weird want of Leader, but also Crossfire. Too bad he can't have both though. Arnold is probably the best air general of old, still good now. You can run Eco or Guerrilla for a slightly less passive air general. FS for more Apache oriented, good and cheap, used to be the god of air back then when Rumor was basically required. Pavlov is the free version of Julius, just 1 less speed for no cost. No reason to sell him, he doesn't take up a slot if I recall correctly. You can run Leader or Fortifications or an Eco skill and Fighting Suppression. Dalon is a free naval general, pretty good. You can run Wolfpack for the greatest support damage general, or something more offensive if you so wish. Horton is the other free naval general, but not so good. Explosives is a dying skill, like I said, especially on battleships with a built-in stronghold perk. so it's pretty redundant, honestly. You could run Sailor or Rumor or something for offense. Navy has a lot of options. Doubting, the face of eco generals back in ye olden times, still useful in the modern era and crazy cheap, another eco skill preferably. And now we're on to the gold generals, so let's get into it, starting with Graziani. Back when Rumor was very important, this guy was the more defensive blitz Rumor spreader compared to Rommel, but way more expensive. Nowadays, that niche is basically unneeded, and as such, Graziani fell to the wayside. So many better tankers, so many better support generals, it's not worth getting him. I'd still run Blitz Rumor if I had to buy him though. Yamashita, in the past, no one would use infantry if you needed infantry generals for invasions. There was Konev, Yamashita, and MacArthur were luxuries to have, not necessities. When Frontier became a thing, Yamashita shot up in viability while Mac fell to the sidelines for me. I much preferred the bayonet charge over street fighting Mac had, because the infantry medal made sure that if Yama went under half, his combat effectiveness wasn't hit as hard and he'd quickly climb over half when he did fall. Ran leader in explosives, and he was the chief of stronghold killers. When ES were added, both generals got even more strength for different reasons. Yamashita became the de facto burger user for me. In the present, Yamashita has fallen hard because of newer generals, but he's still fine to use. I'd run leader in inspiration or inferior victory. Base Patton, no one in the right mind would use him. In fact, he was so bad, I'm not even going to suggest a skill for his base form. If you buy Patton, you better have enough scepters and frontier points to get him to his trainable version immediately. And his trainable version goes from a dogshit tanker to a very powerful tanker, but I still believe Govorov and Degal offer better usage. They both are extremely powerful support generals with incredible damage, while Patton is only damage. And if you get Patton, run AA and preferably Inspiration, mostly because his first skill gives you an increased damage reduction when you are in high morale. Montgomery, our first bio general and the worst one. Until there's an EF armored car that comes out and I can use Air Force Leader and carpet bombing, I'm not going to touch this guy. You want a crossfire general? Go for Rommel or Weigand. Rommel is insanely cheaper and offers superior damage, and Weigand has a better skill set. Weigand. If Bios and Inferior Victory didn't exist, he'd be the best tank general in the game for free to play. Considering Bios and Inferior Victory, he's the third best. You can run both Inferior Victory and Inspiration on Guderian, and Rommel's bio beats Weigand. The Veteran General is very useful for its chaos immunity and extra HP, and it synergizes well with Crossfire. Run AA, your choice of fortifications or inspiration/inferior victory. Remember when Artimoto was anti-meta? Good times. He's a Navy carrier hybrid and also a good helicopter general running insp/inferior victory and Crossfire on Apache. Better damage than Doolittle, less defensive prowess in him unless you run FS over one of the other skills, then he's just a better Doolittle. Or run accuracy and arty leader and have an aggressive land air that doesn't sacrifice his carry potential either. Raider is the defensive naval general. I built a defensive set on him out of necessity for Pearl Harbor and it stuck. I recommend camo and shelter, and no other naval generals can do what he can, and I appreciate that. Guderian, what do I need to say about Guderian that isn't already said? Consistency is his game, with level 5 ribbon and bio, always critting no matter what, and with the skill set to run hyper aggressive inspin inferior victory, his damage versus Rommel's crit happy power is very minuscule in difference. Yamaguchi is the de facto naval carrier hybrid, amazing damage on navy, great damage when used on carrier or land air. People sleep on the Air Force Leader perk, think it's hold it back, but honestly it just makes it even better for me. I'd run Fleet Leader and Carpet, or inferior victory, your choice. MacArthur, I won't speak much of him because I already said most of what I was going to say with Yamashita. He's fine. He could be the greatest medic Hawkeye general with Raider and Gorilla in Sport Inferior Victory, but you just miss out on the more supportive Rumor skill, because medics aren't doing shit for damage in the first place. Fine general, perfectly fine, nothing bad. Rokossovsky, he was already shaky in the beginning of the game, and now he's completely fallen off. There's no reason to use him in the modern era, and the only time I ever discuss Rocco was when I compare him to Mati. Donut's a more support-oriented naval general that has the skill slots to stick to that support, become more defensive, or become more offensive. Possible skills include Rumor, Inspiration, Inferior Victory, Early Warning, Runstead, Base Form, Eco, or a Medic Hawkeye hybrid with Rumor and infantry leader. Trainable Ruined. He's the greatest defensively supportive offense general. Great power with Raider and Inspiration or Inferior Victory. Great defense with his first skill, and great support with his second skill. I primarily run him on burgers, and his hit-taking ability is really incredible, to be honest. I wouldn't recommend him as a first or second purchase, but he's still very good. Konev, the only free-to-play artillery with a bio, and that bio is alright at best. Nothing compared to Zhukov's, of course. You can run him hyper-aggressively like Brook, or more supportive with Rumor and Insp/Inferior Victory. He's great, just figure out which one you need more of. Rommel, the other free-to-play tanker bio, which buffs his speed and crit damage, with his speed being his greatest deficit. He's very powerful like Guderian, but I prefer the consistency over the bit of extra damage Rommel does, but Rommel is still fantastic for free-to-play. Panther Leader and Inspiration or Inferior Victory. Nimitz is another naval carrier hybrid, but less effective. He sacrifices more damage for more defense in air and pretty much useless ace forces. But he's not horrible. He's called Nimid for a reason. Chenault, the triple eco or double eco in carpet, your choice. His inspection is really invaluable, especially for supporting blitzless tankers like Rommel, Patton. Just shoot a Spitfire or a normal fighter and the unit gets crippled. Generally really awesome to use because of that skill. Malinovsky. He's a free gold general with a nice support stat and good damage. Raider, Inspiration/Inferior Victory, but he comes pretty late in the game, so you might want to look into buying another infantry general to fulfill that infantry role, like Falkenhorst. And Novikov, the best air general you can get for free to play. You can run double eco on him, or Accuracy Leader to simulate the Artimoto role, or lean into the helicopter role. So many variants. I personally go with the Artie set myself, but that's because I'm a simp for Artimoto. His Air Tactics Master is a good skill, obviously, it's really good, but I don't think it is enough to warrant him being so late in the game, because by the time you get him, most of the stuff that you need to do in the game is already done. So, but it does sacrifice his viability a lot, because he's so late, but purely looking at what he offers, he's definitely the best air general. But that's all of them. That's all the generals. So now we can discuss the 5 for each unit. We'll start off with tankers. Guderian at number 1, Patton at number 2, Rommel number 3, Vagan 4, and 5 Bitrik. It's probably the easiest to understand. I shouldn't stay on the topic for too long. All 5 of these generals offer great damage, a top cup of free to play. Crossfire is a super hyper aggressive skill. Guderian just has consistency that no one else can, because that 90% leader does fuck you over at some important opportunities, at some important moments. I speak from experience, and also the fact that 2 of those guys are pretty cheap too is really nice. Artillery, Govorov, De Gaulle, Konev, Brook, and Wiedling. The support of both Govorov and De Gaulle is unquestionably superior than the others, and they still offer great damage to boot. Konev is better than Brook if you run hyper offense because of the bio, and Wiedling's crossfire shenanigans is something I very much enjoy, as I am a certified Govorov simp. And Brook is basically Konev but without a bio. Infantry, Runstedt, Malinovsky, Falcon, Yamashita, and Meretskov. Rune's flexibility is indispensable. Malinovsky's free status and great damage and support is really nice to have. Falcon's highest damage potential is nothing to scoff at, very fun to use. Yamashita does better damage than MacArthur and the other silver tier infantry generals, and Meretskov's support extraordinaire really helps out the team a lot. Navy and air, they sort of like mixed together because of how many hybrids there are, but I'll try to like avoid that, but I can't ignore it, Yamaguchi, Kuz, Donuts, Raider, and Mikawa or Darlon. Yamaguchi is the only one of 2 naval generals with access to naval assault, and is better than Kuz purely because Gucci gets it immediately and has air hybrid prowess, while Kuz is pure navy, and also because Kuz's joint offense benefits others more. Donuts is extremely flexible with what he offers. Raider is just the best defensive ship in the game, and Mikawa and Darlon are both tied because they can both do similar jobs, so it's your choice what you prefer. And for air, Novikov, Chenault, Halsey, Yamamoto, and Arnold. Novikov is unquestionably the best, with Chenault maybe not having the best air damage, but he has the only debuff air can spread in Inspection. Halsey is an effective land-air general with prowess and enterprise, and also an emergency naval general. Yamamoto is the second best heli if you make Novikov heli, and a very offensive land-air with accuracy and leader. And Arnold is really good on heli and not so passive land-based air general if you run guerrilla warfare. So that's all the generals. I'm hoping to one day rank all the pay-to-win generals. It'd be very fun to rank them all. I hope you enjoyed. See ya.